and welcome to the Fifth Observatory! Hello, how are we doing? We all good? Happy? 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 I'm not, but that's life and stuff. So I'm Jed, in case you'd forgotten, because it's only been a week and all that.
Okay, and I'm Tresh. I'm kind of happy.
Yeah, the thing is, one of the things that truly gives me joy about doing these intros every week is the faintly bemused look that comes on Treasure's face when I do them, because he just never knows what I'm going to say.
So I've got an eyelash in my eye. So not the most interesting introduction. Anyway, yes, sorry. What a fantastic introduction. Hello, sorry, I've got an eyelash in my eye. Just bear with me.
Apart from the eyelash in your eye, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Well, as you know, but other people watching this won't know, we've had to isolate due to COVID over the last 10 days or so. And today was our first day of freedom. So I was able to go back to work. Yay! So that was fun, but it was good to get out of the house. So Mrs. Treasury is now presently at work as well, which obviously she wasn't particularly looking forward to that, but she was really suffering from cabin fever. So she's been quite happy to get out of the house as well today. So what did I do on the day I can go out of the house? I stayed in to do a Zoom call with you.
That is dedication, dear audience members. That is dedication. That's fantastic. We love it.
But yeah, no, it's all good. Just been, work's work. That's the thing we do to pay the bills, and then planning, filming stuff for ourselves for some handmade rockets project.
What? I'm sorry. What the fuck is a procket?
It's because I was thinking project and rocket and project got mixed up in my head to procket. I don't know.
Okay. I'm putting that. I'm going to name a character Davy Procket one of these days. Just because of that word now.
Andy Procket. Anyway. Anyways, so as usual, we've been listing the things that we've watched through the week, so we vaguely know what the other one's seen, what we can talk about. But I know, first of all, sort of is Loki that we've just seen today, which is just out today. Which, wow, finally actually did stuff, was my reaction to it.
Yeah, only took them, 3 episodes of filler.
Yeah, there's only like 6 episodes, I think, in the series, so it's like halfway through the series and we finally get to something happening. I really did feel like the first 3 episodes could have been condensed to like maybe 2 episodes. It's like, yeah, it could have been squashed even further to 1. If it was like a film, it could have been like a few decent scenes. But as a TV series, I think you could have quite easily cut a lot of chaff out the first 3 and condensed them into 2 reasonable episodes.
These are half-hour episodes. You could have literally made that the first hour of a movie.
So, well, this one that was just on was like, 45, 50 minutes, something like that. But I said that they have got long credits. I've noticed the episode ends and you go to switch off and there's still like, 5 to 10 minutes left on the timer. And that's without the end credit scenes like we got today. I don't know if you stopped to watch the end credit scene today.
Oh, no, actually, I forgot to watch the end credit scene.
All right. It's not anything amazing, but we'll get to that as we get to the end of the plot, shall we? But yeah, so as we're watching it, one of the things I've literally just watched it. So I've got in from work, got myself something to eat, sat down to watch Loki, and there is time that we agreed that we're going to do this Zoom call. So I've literally just come off from watching Loki, so I'm all Loki'd up at the moment. So coming away from the first thing that I noticed as I was watching it, apart from anything plot related, was the young Sylvie, the little girl Sylvie. I recognised her from The Walking Dead, and she's also because I've recognised from The Walking Dead. That means I recognise her as being the young Rey from Force Awakens. So young Sylvie is the same actress who played young Rey, who was there going, "No, come back," as the spaceship's flying away. It's the same kid. So yeah, just a little random little tidbit of information there.
Fair enough.
But other than that, though, yeah. So we finally have it pretty much confirmed that the Timekeepers are bad guys, and there's some foul scheme that they've got, although it's not quite revealed yet what the scheme is. But definitely not good guys after today's episode. I think that's pretty much confirmed.
Just a bit, yeah.
So you said you didn't see the end credits scene. So obviously in this episode we saw Mobius get pruned, and then fight ensued at the end of which Loki then got pruned. So the end credit scene was literally just Loki waking up somewhere saying, "Is this hell?" And then you hear a voice off screen saying, "Is this hell? Am I dead?" And this voice off screen saying, "Not yet, but you will be if you don't come with us," kind of thing. And then it like cuts to Loki's POV, and there's like four other Lokis. Yeah, four other Lokis. So one of them actually is either Loki or Thor, but I'm not quite sure which. But it's this like black guy holding like a big black hammer. So it could be another version of Loki or a version of Thor. And then there's Richard E. Grant playing like an old version of Loki, like a really, really like old-fashioned, like as if they'd like done the Loki show in the 60s, like wearing like a really cheesy kind of costume. It was only on for like a split second, so I didn't really get to take in a lot. And then there's a little boy Loki, and the little boy Loki is holding like a little baby dragon or some kind of like reptilian dog, which has also got like a Loki headpiece with horns on. So, like I say, the black guy, I don't know if he's supposed to be Thor or Loki, but it's a variant Asgardian of some kind at least. So that was the little end credit scene. So it's not like a massive amount, but it's a little indicator that those who've been pruned have not been disintegrated. They've just sort of been displaced into this other timeline. So the timekeepers are keeping like a timeline proper, and then they've got like this other timeline where they're dumping all the variants that they prune. So they must have some kind of process of, this variant, we can wipe their mind and put them into play in the TVA. This other variant, though, we don't think they'd play well, so we'll just prune them, which means sending them into this other dumping ground, basically. So that's what it appears to be, anyway, from that little, like I said, 2-second, 5-second clip at the end of the credits.
Okay.
Which,
I mean, I'm glad that I'm glad he's not dead at least.
Well, yeah. But the flip side of that is, though, when they've been having those fights and they've been like, people getting pruned left, right, and centre, but then other people have been getting stabbed and neck snapped and stuff like that. So they've all been actually killed. They're like dead. Whereas the pruned ones that we were like, oh no, they've been pruned. Actually, they're all right. They're living in this other parallel world thing at the moment. So it's I feel bad for the ones that are actually dead. Which, before I thought it was an equal thing, but no, apparently no. The pruned ones are actually the lucky ones, and the deaded ones are actually dead.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which, again, a lot of those people who've been killed have actually been killed at the hands of our heroes. So it's that thing of like, they're not actually baddies. They've had their mind wipes, and now they're coming at you. I know you're in a difficult situation. You got to fight, but at the same time, we're now being shown that these are actually like real
outright
humans.
murder.
Yeah,
outright murder. Yeah,
which is as I'm not a total fucking sociopath, I don't really like that kind of idea of let's just murder all these innocent people that have had their brains raped.
Yeah, but that's modern day storytelling in a nutshell.
Yeah, so. It is a lot. I think I've noticed a bit of a random aside. Along these lines, I've noticed a lot of like modern films and TV shows and stuff. The mortality rate of kids is like the number of kids getting killed in like horror films and stuff like that these days is actually going up and up. It popped in my head just randomly because I saw the Quiet Place 2 is out in America. I think it is. It's coming out in the UK in a week or two. But in the first the Quiet Place film, there's like a kid that gets killed in that, like the youngest child of the couple, the main couple in the show. And that's like right at the beginning. So it basically opens with this, the youngest child getting killed. And so that's what just like, it just popped in my head that like, by seeing the trailer for The Quiet Place 2 reminded me of The Quiet Place 1, which then reminded me of quite a lot of films and TV shows and stuff lately where it used to be, that was like a child getting killed was like, the big, it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to be like a major event in the film or the show. Nowadays, though, it's just another person getting killed and like, oh, moving on. And it's like, I don't really that doesn't sit right with me, obviously, I don't really want to see anybody getting killed as such. But, when you're seeing a kid getting killed, that like hits on like a really different emotional level, especially someone who has kids as well. Because, once you've actually gone through that bonding thing with a child yourself, it's like then to see a child is, it's something, it's not something that you lose because it's someone else's child. It's still a child and you have that natural instinct. But I'm noticing that I don't know, it's just a worrying trend. And like I said, it's a complete random aside. It's not something I've actually seen this week or anything like that. It's, well, not really this week, but but yeah, it's just something that just popped in my head when I saw the trailer for that, and it just reminded me of all the other shows and whatnot.
It's happened. No, what I mean by that is it happened, and it is obviously all about children getting horribly murdered. So it's a zeitgeist thing, you know. Part of it's a zeitgeist thing, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean,
part of it, I think, part of it as well, I think, might be just, you know, used to be children were kind of off limits for, you know, let's do horrible things to people. Not so much now.
Well, that's what I mean. It was off limits, and if it did happen, it was because either for like the huge shock factor of the emotional effect it has on like the characters and you, the viewer. But now it's just been sort of like really blasé about it. It's like, oh yeah, this kid gets killed as well, and then it's like, whoa, don't just gloss over that. You know, that's if you're going to kill a child character, then that has huge ramifications for the plot. You know, you can't just gloss over it and move on. But as I say, it's not something specific that I've seen this week. It was just something that reminded me, and just while we're talking about, you know, zeitgeist, as you put it, and you know, things that's happening in films and TV shows. It's a common pattern that I've noticed happening more and more. I'm not particularly happy about it happening more and more. You know, it's like you know, something that happens occasionally, as I said, and there's like a reason for it in the plot and so on, or you know, it's for the effects it would happen that it would have on you. Fair enough, but when it's happening like all the time, and like, you know, children are just so like, you know, free targets now, like, you know, like the adult size, like, I mean, I suppose it's just, you know, but that many bloody gory things with adults getting killed, they thought, oh, it's lost its shock value of adults getting killed now, so let's move on to the kids. You know,
I mean stuff like oh god me, what was that? What's the name of that director? Jordan Peele, I think, or something Peele, the bloke who did the movie with the clones, basically.
Yeah, Jordan Peele, yeah.
Yeah, that one had a bunch of kids getting murdered in it, as I recall. Because there's that family that gets murdered by their clones, and that's quite brutal, as I recall. And then the clones of that family get murdered as well, in quite a nasty way. And I think part of it might be the increasing... Well, increasingly, for one thing, we are forcing children in general to grow up faster. We're forcing characters to grow up faster and assume adult positions in storytelling. And that's a thing that's just happening. You know, I feel like, obviously that's fucking apocryphal, so tell me if I'm wrong. But
yeah, well, no, we kind of touched on that the other week about, you know, the child characters, but they're actually playing the adult roles, and, you know, they're able to come up with adult plans, and, you know, they don't just have a bit of computer knowledge. It's like they've actually trained 20 years in IT and whatever. But, you know, I
mean, that's a different trope. But
no, I just mean it's part of having the kids grow up faster. It's like they're not kid characters anymore. It's, you know, it's like they're on the same intellectual level as the adult characters a lot of the time. You know, they're no child characters anymore. Yeah,
and I don't know how to feel about it. It's a weird one. It's a really, 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 really weird one. And to be honest, I'm sort of like, I don't know. That's a really unhelpful thing to say on a podcast, is just I don't know repeatedly. But I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know what's causing it and why it's continuing to happen. And, you know, I mean, it's interesting, but I feel like there's a couple of big zeitgeisty things that have pushed child characters to the fore quite a lot, which is It happened, but also Stranger Things happened, which brought, you know, because there were movies with child lead characters years and years ago that became quite zeitgeisty, stuff like The Goonies. But of course, when The Goonies was made, the people who watched it were kids. Now, the people who watch The Goonies are adults, but they're making stuff like The Goonies. But now they're adults, so they don't want to make a kids movie. They want to make a grown-up movie, you know. Or stuff like It has come out, which is obviously all about kids getting horribly murdered and all the weird, absolutely messed up shit that happens in that novel.
Like the old It film, you know, it has like the child murder, you know, at the beginning. It's kind of hinted at and implied, but it's off screen, you know. Whereas in the new one comes out and it's like, oh yeah, let's show the child having like their arm ripped off and stuff, and it's like, we don't really need to see that with a child. It's just the fact that the knowledge of this thing happening to a child is enough. You don't need to put it on screen. So yeah,
that is to be fair. One of the things I was ridiculously uncomfortable with both the It movies was the graphic violence towards children. You know, like, we don't just see the monster snatch children out into the shadows and they disappear. We see him, you know, take a chunk out of a kid's face, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, we see a kid getting chomped and splattered into blood.
Yep.
That bothers me. Which is not to denigrate from like the effort put into these movies and the obvious attempt to make it scary, but it's again, shock value.
But yeah, child mutilation's a bit. I mean, because obviously we're both big Doctor Who fans, and you know they have like child characters get killed occasionally in Doctor Who, but it's always an off-screen thing, and this child's gone missing kind of thing. They never show them, well, not that they show anybody getting like brutally, gorily killed, but you know, an adult you might see getting zapped by a Dalek, and you see the skeleton through the X-ray effects and all the rest of it. Whereas a child, it'll show the child crying, and then it'll cut to the Dalek saying "exterminate." It won't show the child actually getting disintegrated, that kind of thing. And it shouldn't. You know, I don't want it to reach the point where we can just say, you know what, yeah, it's all right to have these like kids just being killed. You know, they're just, you know, it's not like they've got the whole lives ahead of them or anything. You know, like these adults. It's, you know, it's I don't know. Don't mean to bring the mood down here right at the very beginning of this little podcast here, but
I mean, to be fair, my mood was already pretty down, so you know, you're not bringing it any more down than it already was. Oh dear me. But no, I mean, other than that, there's some interesting stuff that happened in Loki. But to be honest, I don't know. I'm not super invested in it at this point. Like you know, especially like, I'm not gonna lie, the timekeepers were like, what the fuck? I know at first, admittedly, I was like, please tell me these aren't the big bad 3 CGI green people, you know, because that was a bit thingy.
I mean, when they first got revealed, well, not when they first got revealed, that's, you know, when the supervisor agent woman, I don't know any of the names, I've got to admit, when she went up first, and they were just sort of seen as ominous figures in darkness, you know, their eyes glowing kind of thing. But when they actually all went up at the end and they got revealed, I was looking at it, I was thinking, like, I'm getting a very Wizard of Oz feel here. You know, this is very much like, you know, don't look at the man behind the curtain, you know. So when, you know, it was revealed to be an android, I was like, oh, thank fuck for that, because, yeah, I could buy that kind of, like, cheap, cheesy quality when it's a fake. But if that would have actually been, oh, no, these are the bad guys, these are the most, you know, omnipowerful beings in the multiverse, then that would have been a bit of a letdown. It does raise a question, though, of who is actually behind it then.
I hope it's not Mobius. I hope it's not Mobius, that it's a secret twist ending or something.
I suppose it could be, but I don't know. I kind of believed him as Detective Mobius, like trying to figure out what's actually going on, and is Loki telling the truth and all the rest of it. But yeah, if it turns out to be that kind of an attempt of a twist, then if it is, then maybe he was like, you know, the first Loki variant. I don't know, you know, and he's still trying to be a trickster. I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't think I'd be happy with that either.
Do you think it is going to be a Loki variant that does it?
I don't know.
That's like behind it all. Like that feels like, if you're calling the show Loki, that feels like it's something that could potentially be happening.
Could be. See, the thing is, I'm not really that big on the, you know, deep Marvel lore, so I don't really know that many of the, you know, the wider characters. So I can't really hazard a guess as to who it could be inside the actual, you know, the Marvel cast of characters, who it could be. So I'm afraid I'm a bit lost as to who to suggest it might be. I don't know yourself, if you are like big into Marvel.
Not particularly. I'm more of a DC person, but
I mean, it was one of those things where, like, growing up, I didn't have comic book money, so, you know, I think I mentioned before, basically I was allowed one comic a week or every couple of weeks. So I chose 2000 AD because I had like different stories every week, as opposed to if I'd got Batman, it would have been Batman every week. If it had been Spider-Man, it's Spider-Man every week. So I stuck with that. And then when I was older and I actually had enough money to go out and buy stuff, I was then like buying collected editions, which I sort of like got into Batman and a couple of indies, but I didn't have that much money still. So I know a lot of people who sort of, you know, talk in depth about all these like different characters and stuff in both Marvel and DC, and I just sit there thinking like, God, how much money did you have when you were a kid? Because, you know, I couldn't afford all those. It's like, you know, unless your dad was like a massive fan of all comics and he was like spending all of his grown-up money on it, I don't know. But where did you as a kid get enough pocket money to buy all these comics from? It's
magic, innit?
Yeah. I mean, obviously nowadays, I think they're all like, you know, on the internet getting them, you know, downloading, which is fine. But I'm talking about, you know, my contemporaries in the 80s and 90s before the internet was a thing. And then you'd be talking to them a bit, like telling you about all this comic and that comic. And it like seriously was like, you know, wait a minute, where the fuck did you read all these comics? But anyway, that's just
it is what it is. I mean, at this point, I would struggle to guess where Loki is going, and I would also struggle to be all that bothered about it because, as I say, I'm not super invested. Maybe if I'd seen, like, thing is, I saw Loki get killed, and I was like, all right, where the fuck are you going with this now? So getting Loki, turning out that Loki is not dead, and that there's a bunch of other Lokis. Okay, now I'm sort of interested, and I need to go and rewatch the episode. But you know,
Yes, I mean, I'm definitely sticking to the theory that the Timekeepers, they didn't stop a multiverse war. They just decided they were going to take over the multiverse and create a pure timeline, and that's their thing. And they're using this multiverse war to, you know, as a cover for it, basically. But they're just basically like going down, like, you know, making sure that their version of the timeline is the only version of the timeline, and they're wiping out any other variant. It's not variant because of, you know, time travel shenanigans or whatever. It's just variant. So we're like, no, we're making sure the multiverse becomes just one universe. So much in the same way that Thanos had his crazy idea of, if I wipe out half of all people and there'll be enough resources for the other half, it's like their version of it is, well, if we wipe out all the other multiverses, we'll just have the one pure timeline and we'll have control over it. And, you know, so if we have control over this timeline and we wipe out all of the timelines, we will be the rulers of the entire universe, kind of multiverse. So that's my theory of it anyway. But who it actually is behind it, as we found out, the Timekeepers were just, you know, puppets, like, you know, literal animatronics, like you'd get in like Disneyland or something. So, yeah, I don't know who's actually behind it.
The Clock Lady.
The Clock Lady.
I don't fucking know what
Double bluff.
It's the Clock. Yeah, it's the Clock Lady. That'll be totally hilarious. Kind of like that one episode of Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who, where it turns out it was the onboard train AI that was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I quite liked that. That was fun. So, I'm all for them doing more of that. Was there another trailer? Like, on the topic of superhero stuff, have you seen any of the other trailers for the Suicide Squad?
So the one that dropped like last week or something, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people have been. I don't know. I've seen a lot of internet chatter sort of saying this and that about it, but personally, I didn't think it really revealed anything more than was revealed in the first one. It's more of the same. It's like, yeah, we see another clip of the King Shark being King Shark kind of thing, another clip of Harlequin talking like Harlequin. It's not really showing anything that we didn't see in the first one. I
mean, there are a couple of bits that I thought were interesting. One of which is the bloke that Idris Elba is playing. First off, they're totally ripping Deadshot's shtick from him from the first one. So, but
yeah, well, it's because originally it was replacing Will Smith, but then Will Smith was like, no, I don't want to come back. I just can't do this film. So it's like, well, okay, then we'll
make it
over to a different character. But yeah, it is basically, it was written as Deadshot. Just without Will Smith. So anyway.
But okay. So the thing is, that character, I don't know what the supervillain's character's name is, you know, because I can't remember. But what I do remember is, that Idris Elba's character did actually shoot Superman with a kryptonite bullet in the comics. That's a thing from the comics. Now that was the one tidbit that I thought was interesting, because that's like, okay, are we going to have Superman in this movie? Are we going to see a little clip of Superman getting shot with a kryptonite bullet? You know, like, is this 100% going to be the thing that either definitely separates this thing from like Snyder's vision of these characters, or definitely doesn't separate these things? Because a lot of people have been like, "Oh, Warner Brothers has been trying to, oust Snyder's vision and stuff." Except that they recast the woman that they'd previously fired as Iris West back for the Flashpoint movie, and they've got Ben Affleck in for that. And then a lot of people have pointed out that the redesigned Shazam suits for the Shazam family in Shazam 2. Like, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the pictures that have been floating around the interweb of that stuff.
Only a couple. I've not really seen much in detail.
But a lot of people have pointed out that those are a little bit more, Snyder-esque. So it'd be a massive game of triple bluff if they are like actually edging closer to what Snyder intended. But it is interesting. It is interesting, and I will be interested. And the thing is, I personally don't see any reason why James Gunn, because he's worked with Zack Snyder before. They worked together, didn't they? On
Dawn of the Dead.
So I don't see any reason why he, at least, since I'm fairly certain he's still on good terms with Zack Snyder, wouldn't put a couple of bits, in referencing Snyder's take on these characters, if that makes sense.
Without knowing anything about that character, Idris Elba's character, which I don't know anything about that character, when I heard that line, I actually thought that was actually a little joke that he'd actually pulled off what Lex Luthor was trying to do, but failed to do, which was to make a kryptonite bullet. So I thought it was a little joke that, that's what Lex Luthor was doing in Batman vs Superman. Apart from playing them off against each other kind of thing, he was trying to make a kryptonite bullet with that chunk of kryptonite. So I just thought it was a bit of a joke of he'd stolen the idea from Lex Luthor, or managed to do what Lex Luthor tried to do but failed. But either way, it also shows that Lex Luthor's plan wouldn't have worked, because Lex Luthor's plan was, I've got kryptonite bullets, so you better do as you're told, or I'm going to fucking kill you. Whereas Idris Elba actually was like, I've got kryptonite bullet, bang, oh, you're not dead, shit. You got taken to hospital for a bit, right? So that plan didn't work, did it? Right. So, but yeah, I just took it as being a reference to that plot point from Batman vs Superman.
It's actually in the comics, so that's interesting. Also, I must admit, every time I see pictures and images of Peter Capaldi as the Thinker, I just can't help but think, 12th Doctor? Is that you? Seriously, the way he says his lines, super villains, and all the faces he pulls, it's just... I'm going to watch that, and I'm just going to think it's the 12th Doctor.
Well, there's a role-playing game called Rifts, which is set in the future, and it's called Rifts because, beg your pardon, okay, how to do the short version of it. There's a big psychic event, and lots of people got killed in a nuclear blast, and then all their souls being released at the same time caused this psychic event, which rippled around the world, which then caused more people to be killed, which then added to this psychic event. So basically, because of this massive psychic event, these rifts, like portals to other dimensions, opened up, allowing beings in from all these other dimensions. So, cut a long story short, it's basically the future. So it's all future technology and whatnot, but then there's magic that's come through from this psychic event, and all these creatures come from parallel worlds. So one of the character types that you play in this role-playing game, though, is called a crazy. And what they've got is enhanced cybernetics in their head to sort of make them, to increase their psychic abilities, basically. But they look like the Thinker. Now, depending on which artist does them, because some of them do it more like disc, like hockey pucks kind of thing stuck to the head. But the traditional design was like the Thinker with these big things sticking out. So I know it's obviously based on the comic design, and the comic design was from that. But as an old Rifts player who's not really familiar with the Thinker character, for me, when I see him, I just see, oh wow, Peter Capaldi's playing a crazy. So that's what it is to me. That's the character class he's chosen.
I mean, to be fair, I can totally see Peter Capaldi playing a crazy because, he was Doctor Who, so
yeah.
That was, but yeah, yeah. I genuinely, though, every time he speaks, every time we see pictures of him, I think it was even a publicity photo where he was doing the Doctor Who hands. it's like, yeah, he can't help but do the Doctor Who hands. Yeah.
Tell you the trailer I haven't seen, but you may have, that people are talking about is Scarlet Widow.
Black Widow.
Sorry, Black Widow. Sorry, I was thinking Scarlet Witch. I was getting Scarlet Witch and Black Widow mixed up in my head together then. Jesus. Black Widow.
Yeah.
As I was forming it in my head, I was like, Scarlet Widow, that's not right. There's something wrong here. Yeah, sorry, Black Widow.
Widow.
I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it. I've not seen it as yet, but I know there's been, again, I've seen people on Twitter and stuff.
I've seen a few trailers. I've seen a few of the trailers. I don't think I've seen the latest one. Again, not entirely certain I'm that excited for it, especially since, in the best possible way, you know that thing that you and I have discussed, I think privately, I don't think we've discussed it on here very often, but when you're watching a prequel, but especially when you're watching an interquel, all right? When you're watching an interquel and you're like, okay, here's the character at point A, here's the character at point B, this is a movie set before point B, but after point A, it's kind of obvious where the character's arc is going. You know, we know whatever, Black Widow goes through, it's not going to bother her that much. We know whatever Black Widow goes through, it's not going to be, it's not going to completely fundamentally change her character.
That's things I don't actually know whereabouts it's supposed to be set in her timeline.
After Civil War, before Infinity Wars.
Before Infinity? Right.
Yeah. Which is a very odd timing for a solo movie for a dead character.
Yeah.
If you ask me. I don't get it. And part of me is like, did they mean to make this earlier and just never get round to it? Like,
Yeah, I think it has been in production hell, as they call it, for quite a while. But yeah, it does seem an odd place.
I'm also not looking forward to the comedy Russian accents.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm not looking forward to, that some trailers are actually, some reviews are in now. The thing that I'm not looking forward to is part of the character's backstory is this place where these young girls are trained to be assassins. Basically, they get sort of sterilized and brainwashed, and apparently that's sort of like in the film, but it's kind of just brushed over as, oh yeah, and they did this anyway. They don't really delve into it. So basically, the positive reviews are sort of like, oh yeah, it's a great action film and this and that. The negative reviews sort of say that touching on that and then not actually addressing it, then that should really be like one of the core things. But because it's Marvel and it's aimed more like family entertainment, it's just kind of mentioned and brushed over. So as an adult, you're supposed to go, oh my God, that's terrible, whereas the children won't be traumatized or something. But by mentioning it, you've mentioned it. Basically, if you mention it, you need to follow through on something like that. So that's it. But I haven't seen it yet, though. So I'm just going by what some reviewers have said. But reviewers can be full of shit. They might actually spend half the film talking about it. I don't know. But that's the thing that from what I've heard from the reviewers is that's the one thing that's a bit. If it is as they've said, then that's something it's going to leave a bit of a sour taste in my mouth coming out of that film.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'd. Sorry, there's a fly who seems to have decided that he wants to sit near me. No, go away. Nah. I mean, I'm finally getting rid of my moth problem because we bought more cedar wood. We bought enough cedar wood to kill every moth on the planet, give or take. So my house smells now more cedar wood than oxygen. But
is it working?
Yeah, there are far fewer moths. They ate one of my favorite soups, apparently. I only discovered this like the day after my meeting. I had an important meeting at work, so that was fun. But yeah, so that was a great thing, and I was really happy about that. But yeah, we are getting rid of the bastards slowly. You wanted to know that, audience, about my moth problem. That was something that was totally vitally important to you. But yeah, so anyway, what was I saying is...
No, but if someone at home watching this also has a moth problem and they're writing down that cedarwood, right, I'll make a note of that.
We mix cedarwood and lavender with vinegar and warm water to create a spray. So we do that at home, and it's actually very effective at causing the little buggers to bugger off, so to speak. And we've been treating the house pretty much constantly with it for the last few days, like a couple of weeks now, and it's working surprisingly well. There are far fewer of them. We've discovered a couple of other concentrations of them, obviously, but obviously they're mostly gone now. So I'm happy with this. We are making it a moth-unfriendly space. Yeah. Anyway, can I be honest about something, though, to do with like Black Widow is the comedy Russian accents thing, where you've got an American actor and a British actor and a bunch of these other actors, doing these really like they sound in the trailers like pretty broad comedy Russian stereotypes. It's like, okay, so on the one hand, you have a very great and sincere effort made to tell diverse stories with, like, obviously you had Black Panther a couple of years ago. You've got this new thing coming out. What's it called? The one with that's heavily steeped in Asian mysticism and stuff.
Oh, the Ten Rings.
Yeah, that stuff. You've got that coming out, where presumably they're going to make an effort to, not just make it a stereotype. Fingers crossed they do their best not to do that. And then on the flip side, you just go to Mother Russia, have stereotypical Russian accents delivered by non-Russians. And it's like, I'm fucking sorry. Are we back in 1966? Have we just hired Walter Koenig to play Chekhov? Is that what we're doing? Aye, Captain. The shields are failing. Okay. Like, I'm fairly certain that like, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe, just maybe, the people in Russia watching that won't give two shits. But on the flip side, it's like, is that actually okay? Is it actually okay to do the broad comedy Russian stereotype voice? To go to Russia, to have prominent Russian characters played by non-Russian actors, when I'm pretty certain that there are probably actual Russian actors that you could have gotten for that, who can probably speak English well enough to still do the fucking job. Well, is that actually okay? Is that a question we can ask? Is that a question we can ask?
That was the thing with Army of the Dead, is that Netflix said, like, okay, this is a Netflix film. Netflix is worldwide. We wanted to have a diverse cast, so they went out and actually got characters from around the world. They didn't just pick a guy who can do a decent German accent kind of thing. It's like, we want people from these places. So you've gone off the screen.
Yeah, hang on a second. I need to. So my mother was ringing me, and I have to tell her that I'm in a Zoom meeting. So
yeah, no.
One moment.
No, I agree with what you're saying about accents, though.
No, but it's like David Harbour. I have a great deal of respect for him because I hated Hellboy, the movie he was in, but he was pretty decent at it. I really like him in some of the other stuff that I've seen him in. He's a good actor. But I don't need him to do a comedy Russian accent. Thank you.
Speaking of accents, the thing that I didn't like about Hellboy, and it's a thing I've mentioned on this podcast several times, is the rather young drama people coming through these days.
Oh,
so
yes,
the young woman,
of course.
Yeah, the young woman who was in it was supposed to be that street kid from London with like the plummiest, poshest accent in the world.
Oh, but of course, but don't you know that the entirety of Britain is made up of London and a bunch of people who studied at RADA? And that just like really, really wound me up. And it was just like as it continued throughout the film, it just wound me up more and more throughout the film, and that was a big thing for me. That's the thing. I'm not gonna lie. That's the thing that winds me up about Game of Thrones. To a certain extent, is when you go back and look at Game of Thrones, a lot of the young actors from that are all these posh sounding kids. Yeah. And this is okay. So I don't know how it is for our American viewers, if we have any. I don't know how it is for the American side of acting. But in Britain, it used to be that there were quite a number of working class kids who got the chance to work their way up and go to places like RADA or get into acting schools, get into rep theatre, get into TV, get into the acting business and become pretty well-regarded members of the acting community. So you've got like Patrick Stewart, who was, from Yorkshire. You've got your Christopher Ecclestons, you've got your Sean Beans and whatever. You've got people who work their way up from the working classes practically, and you've got that diversity of people, if that makes sense. You've got that diversity of British people from different parts of the British Isles, Whereas now, increasingly, it feels like a lot of the people, a lot of the prominent younger people coming up are just the same people coming from the same parts of the country with the same accents. And it's a bunch of rich people whose mummies and daddies could pay for them to go to drama school.
Basically, you can get into the drama school, into the drama colleges, but you then need to be able to support yourself while you're looking for work afterwards. And that's where it falls down, is it's only the middle classes who can rely on families to support them while they actually get into these jobs and things. So, but you can't get your RADA membership card to actually get work unless you've actually got work. And you can only get work by supporting yourself. Because if you're like doing other jobs while you actually get work, then like, well, you're not a proper actor, are you? You're a waitress, not an actor. And it's like, well, no, I'm just doing this for money. It's like, no, if you're an actor, then this is your job. And so you can't have your union card because that's your full, So to actually get your RADA card, you have to be an actual actor. That has to be your main profession kind of thing. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but that's basically what said, that you have to actually be an actor to get your union card. And so to get your union card, you've actually got to be acting. But as I say, I don't know the full ins and outs, but that's the basic gist of it, which means that unless you've actually got that support to actually, pay your bills while you're actually in between jobs and actually trying to get jobs, you can't become an actor. So that's why it's only your middle class people now who are actually getting the jobs, because they're the only ones whose mothers and fathers are willing to pay the rent and all the rest of it while they actually get work. And yeah, it is. I mean, it's not just a lack of diversity on screen within British film and TV, but it's also like, the kids' dreams out there, they're just getting crushed and like, spend a life. To actually get into these like top drama schools and stuff like that, like really struggling to get in, and then finding actually that they're not even going to get a job because as soon as they leave college, that's it, they've got to pay their own bills and stuff, and there's no support basically, and that's where it's sort of falling down. Is this thing of like, the only way you can do it is to get the union card, but you can only get the union card by committing to this kind of work, which is like unpaid work to start with, like taking like minor roles which don't pay anything, but it takes up all your time. You've got to be in the theatre all the time and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just the system's fucked up, to be honest. And I really do feel sorry for all these kids who like, dream of being an actor and have actually got talent as well, but they just don't get the chance to actually perform.
Act.
Yeah. I mean, there's always been obviously obstacles, and it's always been a 1,000,001 chance that you get through, but you had the chance of being that 1,000,001, that 1,000,001 could have been anybody. Whereas now it's like, well, that 1,000,001, first of all, you've got to come from this background. And I don't know, it's like everybody from the north now always seems to be from Bolton as well. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's like whenever there's a northern character in something, they're always from Bolton. I'm from Bolton, maybe. Even that, that intergalactic show I was talking about a couple of weeks back. There's like one northern character, it's from Bolton. It's Bolton in the future, obviously, Space Bolton, but it's from Bolton. And it's like, seriously? Where's everyone else from? Bearing in mind this is a spacefaring community that can be all over the fucking galaxy. Where's everyone else from? London. And it's like, well, there we go.
We could probably, no, actually, I am going to get angry about this. I'm going to get really sodding angry about this, because you know what? There are very few things in terms of like the political sphere or whatever that get me het up, because I've long since become apathetic. I'm going to hit 30 this year. I'm gonna admit I'm pretty apathetic about stuff. But to me, especially in Britain, class is the big divider, right? Class is the big divider, where basically if you're either middle class or you're from the south, and specifically the London area, you get everything. You get the government funding to make you have nice streets and stuff, and the nice schools and what have you. But if you're in the shit parts of London, or if you're in the north, God forbid you're from the north, God forbid you ever see a penny of funding to get you any nice things up here, like decently funded anything. God forbid,
Oh, do you
God
know they
forbid
actually
any of that stuff.
they actually say no, well, we spend down south, but then the money then trickles north through industry.
What industry?
Yeah.
They killed our industry. They sold our industry. All their rich mates sold their industry to sodding factories halfway around the world because they could bloody exploit child labourers to do it instead. Bastards. Sorry, like proper angry northern voice coming out, but like properly though, like it genuinely really hacks me off, because like what 50 years ago, in like the 60s and the 70s, all right, back when there was a genuine, like supposed to be a genuine classism and stuff, all right, actors from the north could get in. There would never be northern roles, all right. You'd have to put on BBC English, all right. You'd have to like learn to sound like the people down south, all right. There would never be real stories about the north unless it was a grim up north kind of story, all right. But you had a chance of getting to be one of these people putting on a posh accent and pretending to be something else, you know. Whereas these days, yeah, let's tell as many stories about the North as possible and populate it with Southern lovies putting on a crappy accent. Yeah, let's make Game of Thrones where the entire bloody thing is about the divide between the North and the South. And then let's get Kit bloody Harington in and get him to put on a Northern accent. You know, and a fairly unconvincing one if you actually listen to how he actually sounds. You know, like, sorry, I'm really angry about it because
well, that's how
I love...
Back in the day when I used to go on like the fan forums or things, which I don't tend to do now, 'cause I realise it's a waste of time, just like, you know, basically pissing in the wind, trying to convince other people of their opinions. You know, anyway. But back then, there was on the Doctor Who forum, and they were talking about this subject of the lack of Northern actors coming through, and so on and so forth. And someone said, like, well, yeah, but if the Southern, does it matter if the Southern putting on a Northern accent? Because surely, if as long as the character's Northern and they come across as Northern, then it's still like for the character that we're seeing on TV, it's still the same. To which my response is, well, yeah, but by the same thing, we don't actually need any black actors. We can just have white people blacking up. You know, as long as what we're seeing on the screen is the same. In fact, we don't even need any women actors either. We can have men, white men in dresses, blacking up for the female characters as well. That's all we need is white Southern rich men playing all the characters from all the world. That's all we fucking need. Because as long as what we're seeing on screen, you know, prosthetics on, so they look a bit, you know, tart them up a little bit and all the rest of it. But, you know, if you're having that attitude of, do we really need it? It's like, yes, we do fucking need it. Because it's not just about what we're seeing on screen. It's about diversity in the workplace, about nothing else. It's about those kids living their dreams and the same opportunities being there for everybody. And it's just, yeah, it really fucks me off. And it fucks me off as somebody who wants to sort of, like, you know, work in that kind of atmosphere. But I don't want to have to go through the fucking radar system to get there. So that's why, you know, Handmade Rockets, that's why we chose Handmade Rockets. It's like, well, you know, we're just going to fucking do this ourselves then if we're going to do it. Because there's, I mean, not only would we not get in because of the exclusion attitude that they've got to people, but it's like, I don't want to be part of a system that has that, you know, elitist, exclusive kind of attitude. It's like, I want to find talent, and also if I do find myself in a position of, you know, a step up the ladder, I'm the kind of person who wants to, like, you know, reach down and help other people up. So if I do manage to get that step up, great, let's help other people step up. And yeah, I don't want to shut doors in people's faces. That, you know, the all right Jack attitude. It just yeah. Sorry, I was getting a bit ranty myself there.
And of course it does. No, do you know what doesn't help though? To a very large extent is the fact that because media is so heavily Americanized, you know. No, like I mean this in the nicest possible way. Americans haven't got a bloody clue what we're talking about. The media, like in terms of like the visual media, the acting industry and all that, it's their bag, it's their baby. Now, right? The money is there, the opportunities are there, all right? And what is the demand for British people in America? Answer: put on an American accent or sound like Tom Hiddleston or Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
basically
demand for British
actors. Half the Walking
Dead
cast is British, but, you know, none of them actually sound British. They're all doing various American accents.
I know. Like I was really shocked. Isn't the bloke who plays Rick Grimes British?
Yeah.
And I was like,
he used to be on like a really big TV show over here, well, a couple. And I remember watching those TV shows, and then he was on this, and like suddenly it's like, now I'm used to him as Rick Grimes. I'm used to him doing that accent. But when first I found it difficult to get into Walking Dead because I was used to him playing these other roles. Like, you know, I think the last big one was Teachers. But yeah, I was used to seeing these other shows. That was back when we only had, like, you know, 4 or 5 channels on TV. You know, but you had to pay to get more than that kind of thing. You know, there's no way I'd watch it now with like all the, you know, the options we've got. But back then it's like, well, what's the best of a bad bunch kind of thing? Teachers, that'll do. Makes me smile occasionally. But yeah, it was very jarring for me. It took me quite a while to get used to him playing this American actor. But then obviously other people only know him from Walking Dead, and then they hear him talk in real life, and it's like, Jesus, what the?
But it's like House, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you know, Hugh Laurie. I love Hugh Laurie. But why the hell is House American? Why does he need to be American? You know, is there anything specifically American about that character? Apart from the fact that apart from the fact that he's a Vicodin addict, of course. I don't even think I've ever seen a packet of Vicodin in this country, but you know.
No. No, what I was going to say though, of Hugh Laurie and his American accent is there's a comedy sci-fi show called Avenue 5, which is really fucking good. It's made by Armando Iannucci, who's like the guy behind The Thick of It and all those kind of shows. And anyway, it's really, really good. And it's called, the ship is called the Avenue 5, which is basically like a great big cruise ship in space. And he plays the captain, but he puts on an American accent when he's like talking like to the crew and to the passengers, and he's like giving his like little speeches and this and that. Anyway, but then he like talks in his normal English accent, his British accent, when he's like behind the scenes and just in his quarters. But the general gist of the show is the ship goes off course slightly, but due to real life interstellar space travel, once you go off a little bit, it takes months to course correct to get back to Earth, kind of thing. So it's a thing where like through a series of events, it just spirals out of control further and further. And so it's like, so him with his American accent, when he starts freaking out, he like slips back into his British accent, and people are like, wait a minute, did he just sound British? What? And so that's then like another part of like people realizing, like, wait a minute, this is all just a fucking show. But yeah, Avenue 5, I would recommend it, especially now that it's all out there.
What's it on?
Pardon?
What's it on?
I'm not sure. I think it's on Prime, but don't quote me on that one, because I'm sure it's a couple of years now that when it came out, but we watched it like week by week as it was coming out, whereas now it's all out. So yeah, you can watch them back to back, which is how it's meant to be viewed, because it's like episode by episode, it spirals further and further. And it's like by episode 3 or 4, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe some of the stuff that they're doing. But yeah, it's one that we got a chance to watch a couple of years back when it came out. But yeah, no, it's just referring to his accent. It's just like, it's like, so obviously we in England and Britain, we know him from like Blackadder and Bit of Fry and Laurie and all those shows back in the day. He's a national treasure over here. But yeah, in America they just know him from House. So you like slap on a bit of him playing the Prince Regent from Blackadder, and they'll be like, what the fuck? So yeah, so seeing then Avenue 5 where he is actually slipping between the two, it's brilliant. I think there'll be a lot of people like know him from House and maybe don't know he's British, so they'll be like, well, why is he putting on a British accent for this kind of thing? Which slightly amuses me. But yeah, he's definitely being cast for it because of his notorious American accent in House, and I'm sure that's a huge part of it. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. If you get a chance, I would recommend watching it. But that's old news. That's old shit. What new shit's actually been out? So not a lot, actually, is it? It's a bit.
I've not been watching. I've not seen much new pop out. I've been contenting myself with watching old episodes of Doctor Who because I'm boring like that.
Well,
I rewatched Heaven Sent, actually, which I think of all the.
I always get Hellbent and Heaven Sent mixed up, actually, which is.
Heaven Sent first, which is the one which is just Capaldi on his top, and then Hellbent is the one on Gallifrey, which some people think is a bit of a come down. I quite like that episode, but it is a bit of a come down, but only because Heaven Sent is a goddamn masterpiece. like this is the thing that's great about Doctor Who is, for context, ladies, Germans, and presumed others out there. I grew up with Doctor Who in like the wilderness years where shit be crazy, yo. And to put this into perspective for you, the wilderness years had the 8th Doctor Adventures novels for me, where, amongst other things, we had, Faction Paradox, which was just a crazy time-wrecking cult. We had an entire novel based around, this is the 13th Doctor's body, or the last Doctor's corpse, or whatever. We're going to put it for auction, and all these crazy alien monsters are going to come and auction this bloody corpse off. So that was bloody weird. And then you had like an actual Time War, and then the Doctor had amnesia, and then you went to a goddamn Looney Tunes planet in one novel, and it's like, okay. And frankly, Doctor Who on TV, Doctor Who is never that wacky. It's never that insane. But at its best, Doctor Who goes, we are a show about a person who travels around in time and space in a blue box that's bigger on the inside. Let's just go nuts. Let's just do something completely off the wall batshit. All right, that's Doctor Who at its absolute finest. And Heaven Sent isn't quite batshit crazy, but when you think about it and when you watch it, you think about the basic premise of it, which is, let's stick Peter Capaldi, one of the finest actors of his generation, a guy who could monologue for years, in an episode on his own with a monster to monologue. Okay, I'm interested. Now, all right, let's give him some really weighty, deep stuff about grief and loss and stuff. Ooh, okay, I'm excited. Now let's make a time loop montage. Wait, what? Okay. And it's just like everything about like, there are episodes of Doctor Who designed to deconstruct the Doctor. So like Midnight, for example, deconstructs the Doctor as cleverest bloke in the room who always knows what's going on and always figures out a way to save the day. Heaven Sent's like the opposite of a deconstruction. Heaven Sent is like an examination of the Doctor. It's like, this is how the Doctor does these super fast calculations and what have you that mean he gets himself out of crazy situations. And it's really impressive even when it's explained to you. It doesn't, he makes this pop of, am I spoiling the magic? I work at this stuff, No, it's not spoiling the magic. It's enhancing the magic, So, no, I watch that episode whenever I'm feeling in need. It's a palate cleanser, basically. Like whenever I feel like I'm watching an episode of Doctor Who and it's kind of naff, I go back, I watch Heaven Sent, and I'm like, guy in a doctory velvet coat wandering around being absolutely doctorish. That's like, as far as modern Doctor Who goes, certainly, that's like where I go, if that makes sense. And to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I've needed that palate cleanser more than once in the last few years, because I've not been a super huge fan of the stuff that's been happening recently in Who, but yeah, it's good to be able to, like, it's weird because on the one hand, obviously we've had the conversation where I don't like people just saying, if you don't like what's on now, go back and watch, old stuff. I don't like that, and I think that's reductive. And I feel like, as a response to criticism, it's actually really kind of selfish in a way. When you get that response, when you say, I don't like, the current era, oh, go back and watch the old stuff there. Nobody's touching that. You get that a lot on the internet when you say, I don't like the current era of something. I don't like these current episodes. Oh, well, go back and watch so-and-so. Go back to so-and-so time. I consider that a really reductive criticism because it's like, a really reductive response to criticism because it's like, so person doesn't like a thing that's being made now that is by the very virtue of being an artistic piece of media, putting itself out there for criticism. And the response to that is, well, it's not for you, go watch something else. So that's immediately saying to that audience member, that's immediately saying, okay, so what you are saying to me is that one, as this is a piece of media that I am being asked to consume, that you want me to consume from a pure numeracy perspective. You need me to consume this piece of media along with loads of other people to consume this media in order for more of this media to be propagated in the current environment. So to tell me, like, it's not so bad when it's other fans telling you go off and watch something else. It's awful when it's like the actual people making it saying that, because that's just like, you're telling me to not support your media, which tells me that you don't value me as a customer or an audience member, and feeling devalued is the last thing an audience member wants, Sorry, I'm rambling a lot.
No, I'm just thinking that I don't think it's meant in that dismissive, go back and watch that one if that's what you like kind of way. I think it's more meant as like, whoever's, like, if I'm writing Doctor Who, it's going to be like this. If you were writing Doctor Who, it'd be like that. Whoever's writing Doctor Who got their own take on it. And whoever's writing it, there's always going to be, say that we're all like good at his jobs, but it's still going to be different depending on who's actually writing it. So there's always going to be like 95% of people who like it and then 5% who don't. And that 5% is going to change depending on who's writing. So it's just a case of, okay, I'm sorry that you're in the 5% this time round, but whoever's writing, there's always going to be somebody in the 5%, and it's like, I'm sorry that it's your turn, but there's not really much you can do about it. Somebody's going to be in that 5%. So I don't think it's meant in dismissive, oh, we'll go back and watch those others. It's meant in somebody is going to be in the 5%.
I would disagree about whether it's, it should be. Like, you're right. There's always going to be the 5%. I'm happy to acknowledge that.
Obviously I've made up the figures there. Some people it's going to be more like 10, 20, 50%.
But I would disagree that it's not meant in a dismissive way, because it absolutely is.
Oh, some people definitely, yeah. I've seen, like I said, I used to go on the Doctor Who forums, and that's one of the reasons why I left, because some people would just be saying, oh, we'll go back and watch Tom Baker then if you like him. It's like, it is like, well, no, you should find, some episodes that you enjoy. And, it is unfortunate if you're really not enjoying anything in the current series. I'll be honest, I was feeling ground down in the Moffat era. I liked some episodes, but on the whole, I was just, I'd had enough. I was like, hurry up, get the next guy in. So yeah, I've been enjoying the last couple of years in general. But I mean, Moffat, there were great episodes like Heaven Sent. I agree, absolutely fucking belt of an episode. And it was for those episodes when I'd be like, oh, brilliant, yeah, this is what I watched Doctor Who for. Unfortunately, I had to watch the rest of the series. You know, it was that one episode was great. The rest of the series, not so much. You know, and like seeing Moffat tropes cropping up over and over again, it's like, you know, I really was feeling like.
Okay, so here's a thing. Here's a question then, and I think it's an interesting question, sort of about not just Doctor Who, but series in general. So we've seen it. You've literally brought it up now with Doctor Who, and you said it about Bad Batch, which is we're auteurs, right? We like the idea of creative vision. We're big on that, right? But we are complaining about stuff being made by creators with creative vision, having that creator's creative vision stamped on it. Is there a thing where you can have a creator's creative vision just like, should there be a really hard limit on how much of that creator's vision should be in like a serialized storytelling?
Well,
like the thing is,
that's why, if I may, so that's why you've been outspoken about not liking Discovery, but that's an example of the creators just being given complete freedom to go wild with Star Trek. You can do what you want, and they've been given that creative freedom. Whereas then, you know, a lot of fans, such as yourself, think like, well, no, Star Trek should be more of this, and this, which is like completely fair. And, you know, as long-time fans of Star Trek, I completely see the point. I mean, for me, I don't know. I'm quite happy for whoever's in charge. Show me your Doctor Who. Show me your Star Trek. Show me your Star Wars. I might not like it, but show me, fine. Because, you know, we've seen JJ's Star Wars and, you know, and stuff in between. And it's like, you know, we get more content. It's a continuing thing. And it's like, yeah, I didn't like the sequel trilogy, but I liked Rogue One, for example. So of modern Star Wars.
And my point is not, you know, people having different visions, because that's a thing. Like, I don't like Discovery's vision. I like Lower Decks' vision, for example. All right. So this is the thing, though, is that what you were saying is not just you don't like the Moffat tropes, because not liking the Moffat tropes is very different from saying I keep seeing Moffat tropes popping up. That implies you got tired of the Moffat tropes.
Yeah,
which is an entirely different thing from straight up not liking them. So did you straight up not like the Moffat tropes from day one, or were you sick and tired of them?
Well, it only becomes a trope once it's been done repeatedly, so you can't not like it from day one, because day one it was just a thing that happened in the story. It's only when it's happened in 2, 3, 4 stories that it becomes a trope. So, okay. So you know, it's like, for example, I mean, the classic example is like, you know, bringing Rory back from the dead kind of thing. So it's like, you know, first happens, it's like, oh great, yeah, I really liked that character, but then, you know, by the end of the Pond's tenure, it was sort of like, no, do what you want with Robbie. You know, we'll be back next episode anyway. You know, there's no sense of jeopardy with the character anymore. And then once you realise that with Rory, you realise, oh, wait a minute, this is with all the characters. You know, there's no real sense of jeopardy. And then, like, you know, even like Bill got killed and then she got brought back as a Cyberman. It's like, well, she's kind of dead, but kind of not dead. And then even that got taken away by, you know, Star-Eye Girl taking her off and, like, you know, literally bringing her back to life kind of thing. So it's like, even there, right at the very end, it was still sort of like, yeah, no, still not going to follow through with natural death, which then meant that like all the peril was like undercutting the show. Like other random people, yeah, they can get killed left, right, and centre. But the main, I mean, even like Clara got brought back, and we never actually saw her finally die. We know it happens because the time stream didn't explode, so we know at some point she does go back and, you know, face the Raven kind of thing. But we still didn't actually see it happen. You know, there's only Danny Pink, kind of, but even he still got to come back after death to save the day. You know, so it's like that kind of thing. It's only when you've seen it repeatedly. Like Danny Pink in isolation would have been like a cool story, but due to the, you know, previous stuff with Rory, it's like, you know, when he dies, it's like, oh, I bet he's not really dead though. No, sure enough, here he comes back.
But again, my question is less about whether you like specific tropes or not, and more about, okay, so is that a thing that happens with every creative vision then? Like, did you get tired of Russell T?
With that example, it was the repetition of it. The repetition of it like undermined the sense of peril for me, the sense of danger, right? So, but then other things more about style is I wasn't keen on his sort of comedy slant on the Doctor world. It didn't feel like a real world. It felt like I was watching a TV show, which then added to that. They started going through like a stylized thing with the imagery as well, like, you know, certain use of colours and so on. It didn't. It was no longer like naturalistic colours. They were definitely like set up to be like red contrasting against yellow and like that kind of thing. And the repeated use of certain lighting. It was very arty. It was very pretty, and I appreciate it on that level. But with Doctor Who, I don't know. For me, I prefer it to feel more like real world. And then the Doctor comes in and saves real people from this real danger by making it all set up. I don't know. There's a one-off story where it's like overly artistic, then yeah, fine. But when it's all the time, it just like cut out the real world aspect for it. So I didn't really feel invested in it anymore because I'm watching this arty expression. But the stories just fell flat because also the other thing is I've said before is that most of the episodes played out and then they realised there was like 5 minutes till the end and then they just like quickly wrapped them up. There was no real.
Okay. You keep telling me what's wrong with Moffat.
I don't know what you're asking then. What are you asking?
Can you let me finish what I'm asking? Because what I'm asking is that something that happens with every creative vision after enough time?
It is what something that happens? I don't know what you're asking.
That you get tired of the creative vision when it plays out enough times, when it keeps being like, people say the same thing about Rick Berman's tenure over Star Trek, that it plays out the same stuff after a while and it just gets predictable. You've said the same thing about, Dave Filoni in Bad Batch, that it's playing out the same stuff he's been doing for the last 10 years, and it's just got predictable. Is that something that happens with every creator's vision for maybe a universe?
Maybe that's why Star Trek in general, because we've had different creators' visions over time, why Doctor Who have had different creators' visions over time. Maybe that's why they actually succeed, because it keeps changing. So, you might not like this particular one, but it's keeping it fresh for other people and it's drawing in other audiences, and then obviously once Moffat moves on and Chibnall comes in, once Chibnall moves on and the next guy comes in, it gets refreshed again and it gets all exciting again. Like, what's this new guy going to bring to the show? So yeah, maybe so. It's probably
how long does it take to not be exciting then?
I think it depends on individual circumstances. With the specific thing of like Moffat, not wanting to kill off his characters, that once you saw that happening throughout like one series, literally it's like first and second series, you saw that repeated with like Rory. Then you sort of realise, that's the thing that's going to happen, and it did continue then. So it's like very early on, it's like, right, well, I know I don't have to be worried about the main characters kind of thing, and I know it's Doctor Who, you don't necessarily have to be worried about them anyway, but normally it's like, what clever way are they going to get out of it? Whereas with Moffat, it's like, oh, and he's dead. Now he's back. Then he's dead. Now he's back. And it didn't feel clever anymore. It felt like a cop-out. So it's sort of, I suppose it's the way it's done. But I don't think you can really put a set limit on. I think it really does sort of come down to the individual specifics. So, I think like lasted about the right length of time to run one story course.
Yeah, but then Next Generation, the interesting thing about that is you also had Voyager and Enterprise run by the same creative team. DS9 was executed by Berman, but obviously that was more of an Ira, Stephen Bear kind of thing. Okay, so like at what point does the storytelling stuff die in something like Star Trek then, for example? So you say, but then again, yeah, I suppose it might be a case of the individual thing, because you said TNG, all right, the Berman era for that really started in season 3, so that's 5 years, Moffat you got tired of after like 2. I'm assuming Russell T Davis's era you were pretty okay with the 4 and a bit years that did.
Well, no, it's like right, Russell T Davis at the time when it was on, I felt was a bit sort of soap opera-ish with constantly going back and seeing like Rosa's mum and all the rest of it. But then when we got to the Moffat era and it was taking much more of a light-hearted approach to it, with humour and so on being put in, I then saw I was like, oh god, I wish that we had that soap opera thing, so at least it felt like it was more real. So it's like it does hold up a mirror to previous things. So now I appreciate the Russell T Davies era much more than I did at the time when I was feeling that it was a bit too soap opera-ish, because I'm watching Doctor Who because I don't want to watch soap operas. I'm choosing to watch Doctor Who and not EastEnders. I don't want to see that shit. I'm watching Doctor Who. But then when you actually have them, like being more comedic, and it's like I say, it's like it looks like I was watching a show, not a show. So
I mean, this is fascinating to me. Because I'm coming at it from almost like the opposite perspective, which is, for me, one thing I really appreciated about, certainly classic Doctor Who from my experience of it, and bear in mind, it's not fair for me, certainly. I don't know whether you have a similar experience of classic Who, but it's really not fair for me to talk about the eras of classic Who in the same way that we talk about the eras of modern Who. Because for me, I've never sat down and watched an entire era of classic Who in sequence to get tired of that. If I feel like watching the Third Doctor, I'll watch the Third Doctor. If I feel like watching the Fifth Doctor, I will watch the Fifth Doctor. So for me to say, that my experience of Doctor Who was in its ability to tell fantastical stories that often didn't really feel grounded in a real world. They were telling fantastical stories that felt very stylized. Like a lot of my favorite stories are very much about that, And conversely, what I don't like about the Chibnall era, and I certainly don't like about the RTD era, is the fact that it's trying too much to ground itself in reality, and it's not telling fantastical enough stories. The stories feel very, that they're too grounded and they're too mundane. Whereas what I appreciated about the Moffat era was the fact that it was like, let's go off and tell mad stories. Let's go off and tell manic stories.
Well, this is why it's something that you do see on like fan forums and stuff, saying people often say Moffat was best under Russell T Davies. And I think that kind of combination is the best way about it, is to get the fantastical writers under a more real world, overseer producer, or a more real world style writer under a fantastical producer. I think getting that mix is kind of good. I don't know, to be honest, I wouldn't mind the more fantastical stuff. In fact, no, I fucking love the fantastical stuff. It's just, how to put it? It's the sense of the humour being put in there. That's like breaks the fourth wall for me, so it's no longer real. Fantastical is fine, but when it's like, being treated as a comedy, it's like, well, the stakes are removed then because it's not being taken seriously. So when it's like the Doctor being wacky Doctor.
To be fair, I think I'm going to say I don't see it as the problem that you see it as, but I agree that there is very much more of a sense of like the comedic elements to it. And I think that makes sense when you consider who Stephen Moffat is.
I mean,
purely from the perspective of like, he's a comedy writer. And and the thing is, when he was starting to do Doctor Who, when he started doing Doctor Who, did you ever see any of his sitcoms? Did you ever see like Coupling and stuff? The thing is, right. But the thing is, like, as much as he, went off and did Doctor Who, he's even said it himself in interviews. He's a sitcom writer who writes sitcoms, and he didn't feel in himself that he was able to write more serious stuff. And it took Russell T Davies, telling him, "Oh yeah, you can." But actually, when you think about it, he writes like he defaults. And I think this is probably a damning indictment, less of Stephen Moffat or indeed Russell T Davies, and more of a damning indictment of the stresses of show running something like Doctor Who, where I don't know if you've sensed this from any particular thing, or if you sense this in just Moffat or in all three of these showrunners, that they've clearly got moments where they will just default to, I like doing this, I've done this before really competently, so I'm going to do more of the same, if that makes sense. Like, with Russell T Davies, sometimes I felt like he was defaulting a bit to, oh, it's the end of this, now it's the end of that, now it's the end of that, it's up the stakes, and I'm not going to think any more imaginatively, then it's going to destroy everything. It's going to destroy everything. It's going to destroy everythingist. Similarly with Moffat, I always felt like, and bear in mind, I love these tropes, so I was never complaining about it, but I recognized that you would seemingly quite often default to, if not timey-wimey, which is basically like, timey-wimey is rooted in Curse of Fatal Death and the jokes he made at time travel's expense in that, then he'd root it in, he'd default to comedy a lot, he'd default to comedy scenes a lot, so that, again, I would say that's probably less of a damning indictment of these people as writers or whatever, and probably more of a damning indictment of the fact that Doctor Who is a really fucking hard show to make. So that would be my take on that, especially when, I know he's, tried to go on record as saying that it's... Actually, I don't even know if Stephen Moffat's ever gone actively on record and said Sherlock did not in any way affect his work on Doctor Who. Because it feels to me like Sherlock and Doctor Who affected each other, and more negatively than positively, if I'm being honest.
Well, like talking about Heaven Sent, so all the stuff where Capaldi's like, talking about, analysing the world around, so, notice how that came after several seasons of doing Sherlock. That wasn't how he started with the Doctor. Well, it was to some extent with like, on the 11th hour, with like, seeing like the name tag on Rory's thing and so on. So there's maybe a hint of it, but still, that wasn't like the driving force. So that did sort of inform it more and more. But they both sort of like came together. Like, the big trope for both of those shows, which is like, the Claire Moffat trope, is that, Sherlock basically ended with him saying like, and this is how it should be. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson going against blah, blah, blah. And it's like, with Doctor Who, it was always Doctor and insert companion's name now going off. And that was the other thing, like, going back to 11th hour again, is that really did like show this is what the Moffat era is going to be about. Quippy dialogue, a few gags here and there, and then the big threat gets sent away because I'm the Doctor, so run. And that was basically somewhat, but most of Moffat's era for me is just, it was constantly like, I'm the Doctor, and everyone's like, oh shit, he's the Doctor. Is that what? So in Moffat's era, everyone knows who the Doctor is, and that was the thing that's like, I was glad they started like, going away from that towards the end of the series. And that was the thing I was looking forward to in the Chibnall era. It was like going for more grounded. We're just going to have these adventures. It's not going to be about Doctor being this big legendary figure in space.
Which, to be fair, is something I appreciate. But to be fair, I feel like the problem with the deification of the Doctor is something that probably started with Russell T Davies, but also is rooted in who both of these head showrunner people are, which is they're Doctor Who fans who got big as writers during the wilderness years. I feel like the deification of the Doctor is less. I feel like part of the deification of the Doctor, which is what I would call it, like the fact that the Doctor is treated as this big, important, oh, I am the Doctor, look at how impressive I am, figure is, that's what he is to fans. The fans see the Doctor as this big, special, important character, when actually the show has never done that.
Well, that's also the thing that more in the Moffat era did sort of start becoming as well, is, okay, yeah, cool, he's like fast and brilliant and intelligent, and he's like really sharp and he could see these things happening. But it did start getting to the point where he's like, his brain's faster than the biggest supercomputer in the universe and stuff. And it's like, yeah, going back to Bill Hartnell, he was just a bloke in a box traveling around trying to take soil samples and stuff. It's like, that's not who the Doctor was in the original series. And it never sort of like got that far in the classic series. It was always like, it got smarter, and then, he was always like the smartest person in the room and stuff like that. But it was never like, this so super fast and incredibly like knowing everything. Even when it first came back, it was like, I know there's sort of like, touching on, my history is perfect, but it was just history's perfect. He didn't necessarily know everything about every alien race and stuff. But I don't know, that started getting a bit, or still to this day, I suppose it goes a bit too far for me. I'd much prefer the Doctor being an explorer. I mean, we've talked about this before, but yeah, for me, I prefer
what is that to explore if you know everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
But
it's interesting. To be honest, it's interesting to be able to examine this stuff and discuss what we.
I mean, let's be perfectly clear. I'm a Doctor Who fan. When I'm complaining about this stuff, I still fucking loved it because it's Doctor Who. I still watched it because it's Doctor Who, kind of thing. It's like, but I would have preferred it more if it was more this and less that, kind of. And it's,
so what? Even the worst Doctor Who is better than fucking like random bollocks off Netflix.
It's better. It's certainly better than certain shows that shall remain nameless, because I don't want to be saying, yeah, I can say that I don't like this show or I do like that show, but I don't want to be saying, yeah, this show's inferior to this show, kind of thing, unless something's like really, really fucking dire. But you notice I've not gone back to rewatch or to continue watching Intergalactic or The Nevers or Jupiter's Legacy. These are shows that I mentioned when they first came out, and then crickets afterwards. But I'm not going back to say, each week to watch them so I can come on here and say how much I fucking hate them. It's like, you know what? It's not for me. Moving on with my life. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to sort of rant and rave about not liking this and that. But
this is the difference though between stuff like. I feel like, is that a thing that's almost unfair of us as consumers of media, where even if I really bloody hate Star Trek right now, I will keep going back to watch it. And there's nothing that can stop me from going back to watch it. And the only reason that I go back to watch it is it's got those two words at the start of the goddamn series. All right. And like, that's simultaneously unfair on me as a viewer, because it's like I'm not watching this because I was not watching something because I felt like I enjoyed it. I was watching it because I felt obligated. But that's also unfair on the people making the media, because it's like, you're not watching this because you enjoy it. You're watching it despite the fact that you don't enjoy it.
It's like I said, for me, it's like, yeah, show me your version of Star Trek, show me your version of Doctor Who, show me your version of these things. I may not like it, I may disagree with some of the stuff you're doing, but show me your version of it. And one day, if I get a chance, I'll show you my version of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, I'm not obliged to watch it. Show me your version of it. If I don't like it, I'm going to stop watching it. I'll never stop watching it. I'm going to keep coming back for more. I'm a fucking drug addict. But
you rewatched Lower Decks, so you like.
Oh, yeah, I went back to that to give it another chance because, I really did think, was I missing something? Was it maybe that I was just in a bad mood when I watched the first couple of episodes? And I did get into it and I did enjoy it. But then that wasn't a show that I disliked for reasons. It's like, I don't want to dwell on the shows that I don't like, but Intergalactic, I actively disliked for reasons. The Nevers, I disliked for reasons. So those are shows that I don't really want to. The Nevers, I have tried the Nevers. I've gone back and watched another couple of episodes, and I'm like, nope, my first opinion was right. So I've sort of given up on that. But, things like the Lower Decks, that was just something where the humour didn't grab me. So it's like, well, the humour didn't grab me, so I'm not going to watch it. But then, I know you said there was much more to it than that, so I thought, well, I'll go back and give it another chance. The humour did grab me the second time round, so maybe it was just I was in a bad mood the first time round, so maybe no comedy would have actually grabbed me. But then, as I then got into it, and the characters, actually, I got to like the characters, and I was invested in their stories. Even though it's like a comedy cartoon show, you can still get invested in characters in that sense. So,
I mean, I really genuinely loved Lower Decks, which I was surprised. Is when like people who worked on Rick and Morty are going to go in and do Star Trek, my immediate instinct was like, you fucking what, mate? But it's like, no, actually, really, really good. I'm genuine. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for the second season.
No, I haven't actually. No.
Oh, you have to see it. But basically, like, there's going to be more of the same, and there's going to be like more references to older Star Trek. So there's a Miranda class starship in the trailer,
right.
which I just thought is like, oh shit, we're going this far back. We're going back to the Miranda class. Fantastic. But no, also we are getting some more adventures on the Titan with Captain Riker, which I'm just like, yeah, all for this. Show me the Riker maneuver. Show me Captain Riker. I want to see more of it. And I think that's going to be really interesting, seeing like the contrast. I really hope that they don't just go straight from I really hope that they don't just send Boimler right back from the Titan to the Cerritos again. I really hope that they keep that dynamic for a good few episodes.
Well, the thing that I also like about Lower Decks is, I also like you talk about like canon in shows. It's like, yeah, there's like surface canon and then there's like deep canon. Because it's like Lower Decks, it's like, yeah, okay, on the surface level, it's canon, it's in the Star Trek universe, and the general vague events, fair enough. But, like the constant references to original series shows and, the jokes and some of that, the really dumb stuff that gets done it, there's no way you can sort of include all that as canon in the same universe as the Next Generation or whatever. So for me, that's like a good example of how you can enjoy the different shows on different levels without them conflicting with each other, kind of thing. But you mentioned made by the people did Rick and Morty, or having them involved in it. Do you actually watch Rick and Morty?
Yes, okay. Rick and Morty is an interesting one for me. Do you watch it?
Yes, I was going to say, because the new series has just come out. That's all. So
yeah. So for me, Rick and Morty is an interesting one, where basic premise, I like space wacky adventures and stuff, and ironically, as much as it's a really grim, dark, horrible show at times, I feel like Rick and Morty is like if you ever made Doctor Who as an animated show, Rick and Morty is the kind of thing where, yeah, you have half an hour of crazy, wacky, high concept sci-fi adventure. Absolutely. And as far as high concept space like sci-fi adventure goes, that is some of the best hard high concept sci-fi ever.
Yeah.
The problem I have with Rick and Morty, which to be fair, it's only really a problem in a couple of episodes, is, and I don't know if you're going to tell me this is the point, but plenty of people say this is the point. But do you remember that episode where there were those Avengers, rip-off characters, like these superhero guys?
Yes.
And then drunk Rick creates this trap to murder them all because he's drunk and he's a wanker. I watched that, and I was like, this guy is an absolute irredeemable wanker. And, you know, there are episodes where he's not an irredeemable wanker, he's just a bit of a wanker. Or, you know, there's episodes where he's not being super wanker, he's just being regular wanker. And there's episodes like episode 2 of season 5, which I totally watched on an official channel, totally. You know, that came out, and I watched it, and I was like,
I mean, it is on terrestrial TV, so you don't have to cover that one.
Really? Oh shit! Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I totally knew that. Fuck off. But yeah, so I don't watch terrestrial TV half the time. I completely forget it exists half the time. So, but yeah, but season 5, episode 2, that's an episode that really does feel like actually there are redeeming features to this character, even if the redeeming features are shown through a really horrible, cynical, nasty veil. That's
the thing though, with the way the show's set up, with the multiverse and the Council of Ricks, and episode 2 recently with all the decoys, is you never know if you're actually watching. If you really don't like him because he's being like super asshole version Rick, then it's like, well, that's okay. It's one of the decoy Ricks that will follow in this episode. I can just, you know, put my fingers in my ears and like, you know, concentrate on this other guy's kind of thing. But it is kind of the setup of Rick and Morty though, is that the humor is in how outrageously bad he is, and he's doing like the most inappropriate thing possible. And, you know, this is like totally not what you're supposed to do kind of thing. It's like, as opposed to watching something where it's supposed to be a hero. So like Loki, watching Loki, so he's supposed to be the hero. So then when he's like killing people, it's like, how can I get invested in this? Whereas with Rick and Morty, Rick's not a hero. The whole point is that he's being set up as if he's a hero, but from like episode 1, it's shown that actually he's not. He is a dickhead, but that's where the source of the humor is from, is him actually doing the wrong thing in the situation. We know a hero would do this, so Rick's definitely going to do that kind of thing. So it's like, when that's the setup, then fine. But, you know, with Loki, though, I really do feel that we're being pushed. Like, no, Loki's a hero. It's like, is he, though? You know, those people that he's just found out are actually humans and he's just gone into a room and, like, murdered them. Is that what a hero would do? You know, so...
Or, you know, here's this planet of people who are going to die horribly, and instead of trying to do anything about it, he's just selfishly using their deaths as a means of escaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, tell you another show that I'd watched, actually. I mentioned it. I added it on the list anyway. It's Black Summer. Sorry, just a random one that just popped into my head, just thinking of stuff we've watched about whether you should be heroes or not that you're following. So this is like series 2 that's come out recently. Series 1 came out, I think it was pre-pandemic, so it's taken a while to get around to series 2. It's basically, the general setup is it's like a zombie thing and you're following these people through the zombie apocalypse. So the first series was like, you know, the very outset, and showing like people, you know, trying to get on the army trucks to be taken away to safety and all the rest of it, and then showing that, you know, as they get split off and like trying to survive and so on. But what makes this one different is the actual way it's filmed, because they have almost entire episodes in some episodes that set up as if it's just like a one shot. So it's not actually one shot. You can see where the cuts are, but it's set up as if it's one shot. So when you're watching it, it's like from the start to the very end, it's just one camera following these people. Then other episodes, it would just be like extremely long scenes that are set up as if they're one shot, with then like cut to it in other scenes. But the timeline is all broken up as well. So in an episode, you'll see a zombie chasing a guy, and then you'll go into like a cut to a different type of the story. And then you'll cut to a story where you're thinking like, hold on, I'm sure this guy's a zombie that was chasing the other guy to start with. And then you'll see that guy who actually kills this guy, but it doesn't get him in the brain. So then he comes back as a zombie. So then he starts chasing him and stuff like that. So it's like the timeline like jumps around, and you just sort of see it being all fragmented basically. And that's what makes it really interesting, is following the storyline from this like fragmented version of the story. So then like season 2 then picks up like several months after season 1. So first of all, you're trying to remember these characters because, like I say, it was like pre-pandemic, you know, it was a while ago when we first saw them. But yeah, you get really drawn in straight away from the fragmented story, because it makes you actually concentrate on the story, it makes you actually follow it. And then when like certain characters like get killed early on, and then later on you see actually where that character came from, and you're like, oh shit, you know, earlier on it was just like a random person that got bit by a zombie. Now you're halfway through a season and you actually find out who that guy was, and you're like, oh shit, he was actually a good guy. Oh, and it's like, it really just like, you know, keep like, you know, like pulling the rug from under your feet, and there's like lots of twists in there. But just as I say, just the way it's actually filmed as a series of one shots, as the fragmented timeline, it's really interesting. It's not your average zombie film, and it's not about the zombies. It's about this like keeping the storyline hidden. You know, it could be about aliens. You know, it has to have that kind of like supernatural sci-fi kind of fantastical element to it. You know, you wouldn't want to watch just like people going around shopping filmed in this way. But, you know, as an action series, it is like about using that filming technique to build tension. And, you know, because you don't know what's happening to characters. And then, yeah, I don't know, I can't really explain, but the use of the camera in that one-shot technique, and so you're following the storyline, and then you see one of the main characters standing over someone else and they're dead and they've got a gun, and you're like, oh shit, they've murdered that person. But then you'll see the same storyline told from the other character's point of view, and it leads up to them, and it's like, oh shit, they had to kill this person. But then you're following on, like the third scene is then following these two characters coming together with the first character accusing the second character of murdering them. And so it's that kind of like, you know, plot points being unveiled at different times. So yeah, it's not your normal zombie film. It's not your normal action film. It really is like very well crafted from a story point of view. Like, you know, the way it's filmed and the way it's edited and the way it's told in these long segments, as if you're actually there with them.
What's it on?
Netflix. So
I'll give it a watch. I mean, as we've discussed previously, I'm not particularly like the zombie genre has sort of lost me a while back, but like purely from a filmmaking perspective, like, you know, as you know, the audience probably doesn't. I'm not like super attention to detail, brilliant filmmaker, but I do like filmmaking and I do like trying new things out. It sounds fun. Yeah, I'll have to give it a watch.
Really good. I'll definitely recommend it. I mean, like I said, series 1 was out a long time ago, so I might be misremembering how well they pulled it off in the first series, but the second series definitely really sort of pulled me in with the characters. Yeah, and just the way that the storytelling was being achieved by these long shots and the editing. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching from that point of view.
Awesome. Cool. Right. So we're coming near to the end of the time that we've got for this evening. So unless there's anything like super duper amazingly awesome that's popped up that you want to talk about, we might want to call it here.
Not so much, but just as an aside, we rewatched the Mad Max films while we were isolating. You know, couldn't go anywhere.
Do you want to know something really sad? I've never seen them. I want to see them. I want to see them as like seminal examples of like post-apocalyptic world building. I really want to see them, but I've never had the chance to. I've never like I don't know what they're on or anything. So I'm assuming you've got them on DVD. Yeah.
So we've got them on DVD, but it's so the first film is just set a bit in the future, but bear in mind it was made in 1979, so it's set in the 80s, which was the future at the time, and it's sort of at that point it's not post-apocalypse, but society's kind of crumbling, but it's not really ever mentioned why, and that's because real world reasons. They just didn't have the budget to film on all the big streets and stuff like that, so they had to film in these rundown little towns and all that kind of thing. They had to get like rundown little cars, and so that's the reason why the first one was set in this slightly post-apocalypse kind of world. That, and also to explain why there's this like really fucking brutal biker gang just like riding around and stuff. But it's an absolutely brilliant film. But then the second one, that's when it's like the proper post-apocalypse, and that's when they sort of like explain it's due to like the oil shortage and that kind of thing. So basically countries went to war over the oil, and then the oil ran out. And then the third film, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I told you about the oil apocalypse. Well, then nuclear war on top of that. And it's like, oh right, fuck. So it's like, but then you get to the third film, Fury Road, and this is one where it's actually it was intended for Mel Gibson to be in this, and then obviously Tom Hardy is in it in the end. So bear in mind it was meant to be filmed, you know, like 10 years before it actually got filmed. So so Mel Gibson was supposed to reprise the role of Max, and it was written for him. And then they recast it with Tom Hardy, and they just didn't change the script. So there's no change to it whatsoever. So there's a scene with like these older women who like remember the world before the fall, and Max is just like sat there like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, but Tom Hardy's maybe, you know, younger than those guys kind of thing. But rewatching them all like back to back, I came to realize that like Max in these stories is more just like the mythical warrior's tale kind of thing. It's like, it's not necessarily a linear story. It's like each one of these films, well, after the first one shows like the setup, but then each subsequent film is actually told from a different person's point of view that like saw what happened. So it's like they're kind of like retelling of it. So it's there like, at this point, Max is like a mythical, you know, the second film's called The Road Warrior, and that's what it is. He's like the mythical road warrior out in the waste. So the stories that we're seeing now is like, yeah, it might be Tom Hardy, who maybe is a bit too young to be playing the role at this point, but it doesn't matter because we're seeing it from the other character's point of view. And in this film, he's just the mythical road warrior in this film kind of thing, and he's the one taking on the part of Max, and that's what the films are. And I really hope they actually make more. And it's like once you actually watch it from that kind of perspective, it's like, yeah, to be honest, the continuity between the films, which there is actually a line that, the continuity does follow through, but like the small things like Tom Hardy being too young to be playing Max at this point, it's like, yeah, that doesn't matter because we're now seeing it from that, mystical road warrior point of view. It's like they could have almost anybody playing him at this point because it's just, this is how Max is remembered to those people in that instance kind of thing. But
he is the road warrior.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you haven't watched them, I'll definitely recommend them. So even like the old 1979, it still stands up. It's really low budget. So like when they're having stunts, it's like, people are like really being thrown about and stuff like that. And it's, that they had like, one shot, we've only got one chance to take, this one shot, we've only got one chance to take the shot, so you better fucking do it right. And if they don't do it right, tough, it's going in the edit because that's the only shot we've got. So, there are a couple of like really rough and ready scenes. But yeah, absolutely, I fucking love those films. And in fact, it was one of the things where when myself and the future Mrs. Treasure, when we first got together, and remember back in the day, and if you wanted to buy stuff, you had to go through to Leeds because that was the only place where you could find all the good DVDs and books and all that kind of thing. So myself and a friend of mine and the future Mrs. Treasure went out to Leeds and went into the giant HMV that was in Leeds, and we were browsing the DVDs and whatever, and we purchased our things, and we came out, and my friend turned to future Mrs. Treasure and said oh, so what did you get then? Expecting her to like some chick flick and here's a romance and whatever, and she pulled out the Mad Max trilogy, and he was like, respect. So,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I had a very similar reaction, to be fair. Not with movies, with video games. So when I first met the future Mrs. Rhodes, we bonded. A lot of our early bonding was over the fact that she had the first two Fear games, which, if you don't know what Fear is, basically tactical like combat shootery, manic, like proper with bullet time and everything. Except there's a fucking creepy little dead chick who blows shit up and scares the pants off you every so often. And it's like tactical shooter with slow-mo, creepy little fucking dead chick who's going to scare the shit out of you. It should not work, but it works.
What's the game now? I can't remember. Just the creepiest creepy dead chick I've seen in a game. It's actually because at one point you can get out of the boundary of the game, and then basically this creepy dead chick jumps up in your face and kills you. But I was watching this YouTube video where it's this YouTuber who goes out of bounds in games to show you the stuff that you can't normally see. So I first got drawn in through Shadow of the Colossus video that he showed, because that's a game that I absolutely fucking love. And then because I'd watched this one video, then this other video got popped up on YouTube as a recommendation, and it was just this creepy dead chick writing the thing. And it's basically, even though he's got the software to allow him to go outside the boundaries, creepy dead chick still jumps up and kills you. So there's the videos, half of the video is just him, and so if we go out here, we can just say, ah! And it's just the video is just this thing just coming up and getting him over and over again.
What game is that? Is that Boundary Breaker on YouTube?
I'd have to go on the YouTube and find the thing. But yeah, I'll try and find it. I'll send you a link.
Oh, please do, because I need to see this.
I mean, that is my memory of it. That was, it's a while ago, and I saw, that was my memory of it, and it's just, it's hilarious.
I need to see this. I need to see all of this. I need to see all of it right now. But in the meantime, if you want to join us in the conversation in the comments below to tell us that we are totally wrong about Doctor Who and that clearly Sylvester McCoy's first season was the best Doctor Who ever, then feel free to have a go at the comments below. Really, we would love to see any comments at this point. It would be amazing. Equally, you can feel free to join the conversation on Twitter, where I am at Jed Was Here.
And I am at AK Treasure 1.
And we have yet to determine whether there is an at AK Treasure 2. We must find him. We will find him. We will poke him. Or her. It could be her. We don't know. We don't want to assume. But yeah, in the meantime...
Mrs. Treasure. She may have a Twitter account that I don't know about.
Is her middle initial K?
No. That would be a bit weird.
That would be really weird.
Although her first initial is A.
So what you're saying is that together you make the AT-AT?
Yeah.
Watch out for snow speeders. And in the meantime, take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Good night.